Imagine waking up in a time that isn't your own. The streets are unfamiliar, the people wear clothes from a distant past, and the technology, or lack of it, feels utterly foreign. You check your pockets, but your phone doesn't work. You try to ask for help, but your words sound strange to those around you. Panic sets in as you realize the impossible has happened. You've traveled through time. It sounds like a scene from a science fiction movie. But what if I told you there are stories, hidden in history, of people who claim to have experienced this exact phenomenon? What if some of them were never able to return? Throughout history, whispers of time travelers have emerged, their existence shrouded in secrecy and dismissed as legends. Yet, some of these cases are so compelling, so bizarre, that they force us to question everything we know about reality. Could there be people among us who have seen the future? Could there be those who were stranded in the past, altering history in ways we could never imagine? The idea of time travel has fascinated humanity for centuries. But in certain cases, the mystery runs deeper than mere speculation. There are stories of individuals who vanished without a trace, only to reappear decades, or even centuries later, seemingly unchanged. There are accounts of people who knew things they shouldn't have, warning of disasters long before they happened. And then there are those who disappeared into the shadows, their existence wiped from the records, as if someone, or something, wanted to erase them from history. One of the most chilling stories involves a man who called himself John Titor. He first appeared in online forums in the early 2000s, claiming to be a soldier from the year 2036, sent back in time on a mission. He described a future where the world was torn apart by war, where technology had regressed, and where humanity's survival depended on retrieving a specific IBM computer from 1975. His knowledge of physics was detailed, his predictions eerily specific. Some of them came true, others didn't. At least, not yet. But what made his story even stranger was the way he disappeared. One day, his messages simply stopped. No trace of his identity was ever found. Was he a hoax? A government experiment? Or something else entirely? While John Titor's case remains one of the most famous modern accounts, history is filled with even stranger incidents. Take the story of the mysterious man who arrived in Tokyo in 1954, carrying a passport from a country that didn't exist, Torred. He was detained, questioned, and placed in a guarded hotel room overnight. But by morning, he had vanished without a trace, along with every document he carried. His identity was never discovered, and his existence remains one of the most baffling mysteries of the 20th century. But the real question is, what happens to those who accidentally slip through time? If history has taught us anything, it's that knowledge is power. And if someone truly had the ability to move through time, that knowledge would be more valuable than anything. Imagine governments, intelligence agencies, or even secret organizations discovering these individuals. Would they be silenced, studied, recruited? Some believe that time travelers don't just exist. They've been found, hidden, and used for purposes beyond our comprehension. Perhaps the most unnerving aspect of all this is the consistency of these accounts across different cultures and time periods. Ancient texts, religious scriptures, and even indigenous folklore contain stories of people who appeared from nowhere, spoke of events yet to come, and then vanished just as mysteriously. Were they dismissed as prophets? Were they forced to assimilate, never revealing their secret? Or were they taken by those in power, their knowledge locked away where no one else could access it? And then, there are those who are never heard from again. People who vanish, leaving behind only cryptic clues, strange diary entries, unexplainable artifacts, or sketches of technology that shouldn't exist. Some believe these individuals were caught in a loop, sent back to fix something, only to become trapped in the past. Others suggest they were found, identified, and removed before their knowledge could disrupt the timeline. If such people exist, it would mean that our understanding of history is incomplete, that events we take for granted may have been shaped by forces beyond our comprehension. But the deeper we go into these mysteries, the more questions arise. What if time travel isn't just an accident or an experiment, but a controlled phenomenon? What if some people weren't just lost in time, but placed there intentionally? And most disturbingly, what if they're still out there, living among us, their purpose unknown? If time travelers exist, the next question we must ask is, who controls them? Are they lone wanderers lost in the currents of time? Or have they been orchestrated by something much larger, something hidden from public knowledge? As history has shown, those with valuable knowledge rarely remain free for long. Governments, intelligence agencies, and clandestine organizations thrive on secrecy and control. If someone possessed the ability to move through time, would they be allowed to act independently? Or would they be seized, studied, and repurposed for a greater agenda? Consider the rumors surrounding the Montauk Project, a secretive U.S. government experiment allegedly conducted at Camp Hero in Montauk, New York. According to various accounts, this project explored mind control, time manipulation, and interdimensional travel. While the official narrative dismisses it as fiction, some claim that individuals involved in these experiments experienced temporal displacement, some thrown decades into the future, others into the distant past. Stories of people appearing out of thin air near Montauk, disoriented and confused, continue to fuel speculation. Could these be remnants of a failed experiment? Were they subjects of a classified time travel program that went terribly wrong? The U.S. isn't the only country rumored to have tampered with time. In the heart of Nazi Germany, the occult-obsessed Third Reich reportedly pursued time travel as part of their desperate quest for ultimate power. One of the strangest accounts revolves around the alleged Nazi bell, or Die Glocke, a mysterious, bell-shaped device believed to generate an anti-gravity effect. Some believe the Nazi bell was more than just a weapon or propulsion experiment. It may have been a time machine. Reports suggest that when the war ended, both the device and key scientists involved vanished without a trace. Did they succeed in escaping into another time? If so, where or when did they go? As history moves forward, the idea of time travel only becomes more compelling. Take, for example, the case of Andrew Carlson. In 2003, an unknown man was arrested for suspicious stock market activity. Over a period of just 2 weeks, Carlson allegedly turned an initial investment of $800 into $350 million through a series of flawless stock trades. When questioned by authorities, he made an astonishing claim. He was a time traveler from the year 2256. He provided detailed information about future events and even offered to disclose Osama bin Laden's location in exchange for a lighter sentence. Before further investigation could take place, Carlson mysteriously disappeared from custody. His existence left behind no record, and even attempts to trace his identity led to dead ends. Was he a hoax, a genius con artist, or something more? These cases share a disturbing commonality. Those who seem to possess knowledge beyond their time either vanish or are erased from history. Is this a mere coincidence, or is there a concerted effort to silence them? If time travel is real, and if people have truly moved between different points in history, then someone must be keeping them in check. Perhaps they are intercepted before they can alter the timeline in dangerous ways. Perhaps they are absorbed into secret programs, forced to work from the shadows to ensure history unfolds as intended. But what if the control extends even further? Some theorists suggest that time travelers are not just being monitored, but actively deployed by those in power. Imagine a reality where historical events were not accidental, but carefully curated. Wars, assassinations, economic collapses. What if key moments in history were influenced by unseen forces manipulating time itself? Could the rise and fall of civilizations be shaped by travelers whose mission is to ensure a specific outcome? If such manipulation exists, then the entire fabric of reality as we know it is merely an illusion, a construct designed by those who walk between the past, present, and future. Perhaps the most chilling thought is the possibility that we would never even know if we had encountered a time traveler. If someone from the future needed to blend in, they would be trained to erase all traces of their existence. They would adapt, change identities, and ensure that their actions left no anomalies. But every now and then, small cracks appear, people who seem to know too much, technology that appears ahead of its time, individuals who vanish without a trace. These fragments of evidence suggest that, despite the best efforts to keep time travel hidden, the truth occasionally slips through. And yet, there is one final question that lingers. What happens to those who discover too much? Throughout history, There have been individuals who seem to uncover secrets they were never meant to know. Whistleblowers, researchers, and even ordinary people who stumbled upon information that defied logic. Many of them share a troubling fate. Some disappear under mysterious circumstances, others suffer sudden accidents, and some are publicly discredited until their claims are dismissed as insanity. If time travelers exist, and if their presence is actively concealed, then what happens to those who get too close to the truth? Consider the case of Rudolf Fens, a man who allegedly appeared in New York City in 1950, wearing 19th-century clothing. Witnesses described him as confused, frightened, and completely out of place. Moments later, he was struck by a car and killed. When authorities searched his body, they found a series of bizarre items, old currency, business cards from a company that hadn't existed for decades, and identification papers dated 1876. Strangely, when police investigated his background, they discovered that a man by the same name had vanished without a trace in 1876. Was Fens a man who accidentally slipped through time, only to be struck down before he could understand what had happened? Or was he something more, a warning of what happens when someone crosses the invisible boundaries of time? Fens's case is just one of many. People have reported encounters with strangers who seem confused by their surroundings, dressed inappropriately for the time period, or speaking in outdated dialects. Some of these individuals are taken in for questioning, only to vanish without explanation. Others are brushed off as mentally ill and forgotten. But what if they were something more? What if they were travelers who had fallen through time, only to be silenced before their existence raised too many questions? There is also the theory that not all time travelers are lost or accidental. Some may have been placed intentionally, embedded within society to guide history along a specific path. This raises a chilling question. How many of the most influential figures in history were truly from their own time? Were certain leaders, inventors, or visionaries placed in key moments to ensure a specific outcome? If so, then history itself is not what we believe it to be. It is not a series of random events, but a carefully controlled sequence, manipulated by those who hold the power of time in their hands. One theory suggests that these travelers, whether lost or assigned, eventually reach a point where they must be extracted. Some believe that sudden disappearances throughout history, people who walked into the night and were never seen again, are not mere accidents. Instead, they are retrievals. The moment a traveler's purpose is fulfilled, or their presence threatens the stability of history, they are taken. This could explain the eerie consistency of cases where individuals vanish without a trace, often after exhibiting strange behavior or claiming to know things beyond their time. But who controls this? If time travel is real, and if travelers are monitored, corrected, or erased, then there must be an organization or force beyond what we can comprehend. Some theories point to secret government projects, hidden deep within classified intelligence programs, that operate outside public knowledge. Others suggest something even more unsettling: that the very structure of reality has enforcers, entities tasked with maintaining the flow of time as it was intended. There are even those who speculate that time itself is conscious, self-correcting, and that anomalies, travelers who interfere too much, are naturally erased. Whether through unseen forces or deliberate intervention, time may have a way of protecting itself. This could explain why so many stories of time travelers end in disappearance, madness, or secrecy. If history has guardians, whether human or something else entirely, then the true nature of time travel may be a secret we were never meant to uncover. In the end, the question remains: are we living in a timeline shaped by unseen forces? Are there travelers among us, ensuring that history unfolds as it was always meant to? Or is it possible that someone, somewhere, has already changed our past, altering reality in ways we cannot even perceive? If so, then what other secrets remain hidden, waiting to be discovered? What if the timeline we live in is not the first? What if reality itself has been altered over and over again by forces beyond our understanding? By those who move through time with a purpose we may never fully grasp. The idea that time travel is real is already enough to shake our perception of reality, but the possibility that history has been rewritten countless times raises an even darker question. If someone had the power to manipulate time, who would they choose to erase, And what would they choose to change? Throughout history, there have been unexplained gaps. Moments where records seem inconsistent, where people and events vanish without logical reason, and where things don't quite align with what we remember. Some have brushed this off as mere misremembering, a psychological phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. People collectively recall facts, events, and even historical details that don't match official records. The name itself comes from the widespread belief that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, something that never happened in this timeline. But what if the Mandela effect isn't a trick of the mind? What if it's the lingering imprint of a timeline that once existed, but has since been erased? If history has been changed, it would mean that somewhere, in some hidden place, there are those with the knowledge of what came before. But who are they? Are they time travelers stranded between realities, struggling to remember a past that no longer exists? Or are they the architects of this new history, ensuring that we never uncover the truth? One of the most chilling possibilities is that time travel is not merely an accidental discovery, but a tool of control. Imagine a reality where governments, corporations, or secret societies had access to time manipulation. The ability to erase enemies, rewrite political landscapes, and engineer historical events would make them unstoppable. Wars could be won before they even began. Opposing ideologies could be erased from history. Entire civilizations could be altered or removed with a single intervention. And the most terrifying part? We would never know. What if history's greatest mysteries, unexplained disappearances, ancient civilizations that vanished without a trace, technological advancements that appeared centuries ahead of their time, were not accidents or anomalies, but deliberate manipulations? Could figures like Tesla, who seemed to possess knowledge beyond his era, have been influenced by travelers from another time? Could the sudden destruction of powerful civilizations like the Mayans, who left behind cryptic calendars and knowledge of celestial events, be the result of someone interfering with their destiny? Perhaps the most disturbing idea is that history itself is fluid, constantly shifting as those who control time continue to make changes. If time travelers walk among us, if there are those who can erase events and rewrite history, then the reality we live in may be nothing more than a carefully crafted illusion. One iteration of history among countless others. But if that's true, is there a way to escape the cycle? And more importantly, is there anyone left who remembers the truth? If history has been rewritten, then somewhere, hidden in the cracks of reality, there must be traces of the world that existed before. But where would those traces be? Who would remember them? If changes to the timeline were absolute, then everything would shift to match the new reality. Records would alter, memories would adjust, and no one would ever question the new version of history. But what if there were exceptions? There are those who claim to experience memories that do not align with the reality they live in. Memories of places that no longer exist, events that never happened, or people who were never born. Some dismiss these as hallucinations or false memories. But what if they are remnants of a past that was erased? A past that, for some reason, refuses to fully disappear. Could it be that certain individuals are resistant to timeline changes, their minds holding on to echoes of what once was? And if so, what makes them different? This raises another unsettling possibility. If some people can retain memories of altered timelines, could there be others who are aware of the changes and actively working to suppress them? It's one thing to consider time travel as a natural or scientific phenomenon, but another entirely to consider it as a method of control. If someone or something is rewriting history, then there must also be an effort to prevent the past from resurfacing. Some theorists believe that our reality is constantly being edited, and that those who begin to notice the inconsistencies, who start to piece together memories that don't belong, are systematically silenced. Accidents, sudden disappearances, or even subtle psychological conditioning could be methods used to erase those who remember too much. The idea of timeline enforcers is not new. Many science fiction stories have explored the concept of secret organizations dedicated to maintaining the integrity of history. But what if such an organization actually exists? What if their purpose is not to protect history as it was, but to ensure that no one questions the version they have created? One of the strangest aspects of this theory is the idea that certain individuals throughout history may have been placed intentionally, either to correct past alterations or to ensure that the world follows a specific path? Could there be time travelers living among us right now, guiding humanity toward an outcome that has been predetermined? If this is the case, then how much of what we believe to be our own choices and discoveries are truly ours? How much of our world has been shaped by unseen hands, subtly directing events toward a future that has already been decided? If time travel is being used to alter reality, then somewhere, in some forgotten corner of history, there may still be evidence of what came before. Hidden texts, suppressed research, or even artifacts that do not belong to any known civilization could be the last remaining clues to a world that was erased. And if such evidence exists, then the real question is, who is keeping it hidden, and why? If reality has been rewritten before, is there a way to break free from the cycle? And if time travelers are shaping history in secret, can we ever uncover the truth? Some believe that scattered throughout the world, there are anomalies, things that don't fit within the known timeline. Strange artifacts, out-of-place historical references, and even lost civilizations that seem to appear and disappear without explanation. Could these be remnants of past timelines, evidence of changes that were never fully erased? Consider the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient Greek device discovered in a shipwreck, dating back over 2,000 years. This complex, gear-driven machine could calculate astronomical positions with incredible precision, something that shouldn't have been possible with the known technology of the time. Some researchers believe it was far more advanced than anything that existed for at least another 1,000 years. Could it be an artifact from a previous timeline, one in which technological advancements occurred earlier but were later erased? There are also strange reports of objects embedded in rock formations that predate humanity itself. Examples include the London Hammer, a seemingly modern hammer encased in 400-million-year-old rock, or the Wolfsegg iron, a perfectly machined iron cube found in 19th-century Austria inside a coal deposit estimated to be 60 million years old. These anomalies challenge everything we understand about history. If the timeline has been altered repeatedly, could these objects have been left behind from civilizations that were erased? Or worse, could they be evidence of failed attempts to rewrite history, remnants of forgotten experiments in controlling time? But the anomalies are not just physical. Throughout history, there have been individuals who seem to know things they shouldn't. Some claim to have memories of events before they happen, detailed knowledge of technologies that don't yet exist, or inexplicable insights into future scientific breakthroughs. Were they accidental survivors of timeline shifts, or were they travelers left behind when their mission was complete? One of the most perplexing cases involves a man named John Titor. In the early 2000s, he appeared on internet forums claiming to be a time traveler from the year 2036. He provided detailed descriptions of future events, including a global conflict and the downfall of modern society. While many dismissed him as a hoax, some of his predictions came eerily close to reality. What made his case even stranger was his apparent understanding of physics far beyond common knowledge at the time. Then, just as mysteriously as he arrived, he vanished. His post stopped, his traces disappeared. Was he a fraud, or was he part of something far greater, perhaps recalled back to his own time after revealing too much? If time travelers are real and are actively altering history, then how many times has reality changed without us knowing? Could there be an entire hidden war between factions of time travelers, some seeking to control history, others trying to protect it? The idea may sound like science fiction, but the pieces of evidence scattered throughout history suggest that the truth may be far stranger than we can imagine. And yet, the most chilling possibility remains. If there are those who erase evidence of past timelines, silence those who know too much, and ensure that history follows a specific path, then what happens when someone begins to remember? What happens when someone stumbles upon a fragment of reality that was supposed to be erased? Would they be allowed to reveal the truth, or would they simply disappear, just like so many others before them? Perhaps somewhere right now, there is someone who has seen beyond the illusion, someone who remembers a past that no longer exists. The question is, will they survive long enough to tell us? If time travelers exist, if history has been rewritten over and over again, then there must be a moment, somewhere in the fabric of time, where everything went wrong. A moment when an experiment was pushed too far, when an intervention fractured reality itself, leaving behind traces of what should never have been. The question is, has someone already found that moment? And if they did, what happened to them? Throughout history, there have been individuals who vanished without explanation, people who seemed to stumble upon something they were never meant to see. Scientists, historians, and researchers who were on the brink of groundbreaking discoveries, only to disappear, retract their work, or suffer sudden and unexplained deaths. What if they had uncovered evidence of the original timeline? A timeline before it was altered, before reality itself was reshaped by those who now move unseen, keeping history in check. One of the most chilling possibilities is that our world is no longer operating as a single, continuous reality. What if multiple versions of history are running parallel, shifting in and out of existence as different factions battle over control of the past? Some researchers believe that strange phenomena, time slips, déjà vu, and even ghost sightings, are not supernatural occurrences, but glimpses into these overlapping timelines. There are accounts of people walking into places that shouldn't exist, finding themselves in a version of reality that doesn't match the world they left behind. Some claim to have traveled down a familiar street only to find it completely changed. Shops they remember replaced by unfamiliar buildings, people behaving as if the new reality had always been there. And then, just as suddenly, everything snaps back, as if nothing ever happened. Are these just glitches in memory, or evidence that time itself is unstable? Then, there are those who claim to have met individuals who seem out of place, not just in terms of their appearance or behavior, but in the way they speak, the knowledge they possess. Some have spoken of strangers who casually reference events that haven't happened yet, who hint at knowledge of things that should be impossible. These encounters often end the same way. The stranger realizes they've said too much, their demeanor shifts, and they vanish, sometimes within days, sometimes within minutes, as if they were never there at all. But perhaps the most disturbing idea is that history itself is trying to correct these changes, that time resists manipulation. If so, then every alteration, every intervention, creates instability, a rippling effect that cannot be fully controlled. And if history is pushing back, then what happens when the changes become too great? What happens when time finally reaches its breaking point? If time is unraveling, then someone, somewhere, must know how to stop it. But what if the ones who could have fixed it were erased first? If factions of time travelers have been rewriting history, erasing anomalies, and ensuring that the timeline remains stable, then the moment something goes wrong, they would be the first to disappear. Without them, time would begin to spiral out of control, fracturing into alternate versions of reality, each one more unstable than the last. There are already signs that this could be happening. Reports of places that seem to flicker in and out of existence, objects appearing where they shouldn't, and people waking up to a world that feels slightly off. Some believe that these are all symptoms of a war being fought behind the scenes, a battle between those trying to maintain control and those trying to break free. But if time travelers are real, then where are they now? Why have they gone silent? One theory suggests that something, or someone, has trapped them. If time travelers had free rein to move through history, then they would have foreseen this collapse long before it happened. So what stopped them? There are stories of secret experiments, deep within classified projects, aimed at locking down time itself. If the ability to manipulate history became too dangerous, then the logical step would be to seal it away, to trap anyone capable of interfering inside a fixed loop, forever cut off from the rest of reality. Perhaps the true architects of history are not watching over us anymore. Perhaps they were imprisoned in their own creations, unable to escape, while the timeline they once controlled slowly falls apart without them. And if that's the case, then something else must have taken their place. If time travelers are gone, then who, or what, is rewriting history now? There are whispers of an intelligence beyond our understanding, something that exists outside of time itself. Some call it the correction, an unseen force that repairs and redirects history when it begins to fracture. But what if it isn't a correction at all? What if it's something far worse? Something rewriting time according to its own design? If so, then every change to history is no longer the work of humans, but but of something else entirely. And the most terrifying part? If this intelligence is rewriting history, then how would we ever know? How many times has it already reshaped the past, altered reality, and erased those who got too close? If time itself has become the enemy, then there may be no way to fight it. Because by the time we realize what's happening, we might already be living in the new reality it has created. Somewhere, buried deep within history, there must be a moment, a singular point in time, where everything changed. A decision that was made, a thread pulled too hard, an alteration so profound that it set this unraveling in motion. But if time has been rewritten countless times, then how can we ever find it? How can we pinpoint the moment that shattered reality, when every record, every memory has already been altered, unless, of course, someone left a message? Throughout history, there have been whispers, stories of lost knowledge, cryptic warnings hidden in ancient texts, strange symbols that defy known languages. Some believe that these are remnants of previous timelines left behind by those who saw what was coming. Perhaps the ones who first manipulated time realized, too late, that they had doomed themselves. Perhaps, in their final act, they left behind clues, hidden where no one would think to look. Messages encoded into myths, warnings disguised as legends. One of the most enigmatic of these warnings is an ancient symbol found across multiple civilizations that had no contact with each other. A spiral, often drawn with a break at the end, as if something had interrupted its infinite cycle. The Hopi people of North America, the Celts of Europe, and even the lost civilizations of South America all carved variations of this symbol into stone. Some researchers believe it represents the flow of time itself, an ever-looping cycle that, at some point, was severed. Could this be the signature of those who tried to repair time, or was it left as a warning to those who would come after them? If so, then the truth is hidden somewhere, waiting to be uncovered. Perhaps there is a pattern to these changes, a structure beneath the chaos. If someone could track the anomalies, piece together the inconsistencies, and find the echoes of past timelines, then they might be able to locate the exact moment that history was rewritten. And if they find it, they might be able to undo everything. But here's the terrifying part. If someone is watching, if something is controlling the timeline, then they will not allow this to happen. Anyone who gets too close will be erased, just as others have been before them. And if time itself is working against us, then how do we fight an enemy that can delete us before we even begin? Unless, that's the key. What if the only way to defeat the force rewriting history is not to fight it in the present, but to go back? Back before the first change, back before the first alteration, to the moment where all of this began. If someone could break through the barriers of time, if they could go to the source, then they might have one chance to set things right. But here's the question that no one dares to ask. What if this has already happened? What if someone did go back, did try to fix everything, only to fail? What if we are already living in the aftermath of their attempt, trapped in a cycle that repeats endlessly, each iteration slightly different from the last? And what if, right now, someone else is trying again? Perhaps, somewhere in the world, there is a person who has seen the truth. A person who remembers what should not be remembered. Someone who is running, hiding, searching for the final missing piece before time itself erases them. And if they fail, then history will reset and none of us will ever know. Please subscribe for supporting us.